All people lived their ordinary lives, unaware of what was happening in the world. Then those who were given power pressed a button, erasing what they considered a problem. No one expected the end of the world to come so soon. Those who perished in the first seconds are called the lucky ones. The others had developed immunity to the black poison. They had to choose, cling to the civilization of the past or become savages in the new dark future. Mark and his wife, Nina, decided to leave the city. Their friend warned them that it was too dangerous. They had no idea who they might encounter. Besides, everything they needed for survival was here. Mark replied that Nina wanted to see her parents, so he had no choice. After some time, the couple decided to rest in a garage. However, a group of bandits who had recently been involved in a shootout with another gang entered the same place. Mark tried to quietly gather their belongings, but then Nina got the idea to open a creaky door. A man heard the noise and started walking toward the source of the sound. Just as he was about to check, another group burst into the building and began shooting at everyone in sight. Mark takes advantage of the moment and runs. The main problem is that their destination is on the opposite side of the country, while bandits are rapidly seizing new territories. A radio host advises survivors to stay away from the city, especially after dark. Mark follows his advice and stops in front of a house. Judging by what happened to its owners, it's not a very safe place. Nina tries to contact her mother, but she doesn't answer. Late in the evening, Mark plans their route and naively dreams that the grumpy old man will give him his cool magnum. Meanwhile, a stranger watches their house from the shadows. A new day begins. The stranger is caught by the bandits. They promise to kill him if he doesn't tell them where they can find the girl. In exchange for information, they offer to spare his life. He has no choice but to admit that he saw the couple. However, the gang leader doesn't keep his word and eliminates the man. A few hours later, the bandits break into the house. Mark helps Nina hide in the attic. Then he begins hunting down the uninvited guests, ultimately taking out each one of them. With 134 miles left to their destination, the couple stops by a store to search for supplies, but instead finds a man who doesn't seem dangerous. His name is Nathan, and to reassure them, he even offers to let them take his weapon. He hasn't seen sane people in a long time. Their conversation is interrupted by the sound of engines. Nathan invites the couple to his place, and shortly after, the bandits are taken out by his son Stephen. Nathan extends the invitation again. Nina replies that they still have a long way to go, to which Nathan says that their meeting was no coincidence. Besides, his wife Teresa makes the best stew, an offer she simply couldn't refuse. They had barely pulled onto the road when their path was blocked by Jimmy and his men. They had captured a girl named Betsy from another gang. To prevent her from escaping, he had implanted a tracking chip in her, but what mattered more to him was finding out what valuable cargo was sitting in Nathan's car. Stephen reassured them not to be afraid, saying that Jimmy's gang was a bunch of weaklings who wouldn't dare harm them. Nathan subtly hinted that they should move the car back so the gang would leave. Jimmy hesitated for a moment before giving the order to retreat. Once they arrived home, Nathan handed over the car's papers. Mark had his doubts. Nina's mother had always stayed in touch, but now it had been silent for a week. During dinner, Teresa noticed that Mark and Nina seemed distant from each other. Nina admitted that they had been planning to file for divorce before everything started. Mark then asked Nathan if he could sell him a couple of hamburgers since their supplies were running low. Nathan was willing to give them a few for free, if Mark could guess what kind of meat it was. Mark answered game. That made Nathan laugh because all the animals had died at the very beginning of the apocalypse. It was then that Mark realized what they had just eaten. Delicious, slightly aged, but tender meat. Nathan, however, didn't see a problem with it. Now they had two choices. Mark and Nina could stay with them and pretend everything was normal, or he could drain their blood and turn them into patties. Their conversation was interrupted by another survivor, a man who had come to make a deal. He wanted to trade a little girl in exchange for the couple. While the host tries to calm him down, Stephen sneaks up on the bandit and slashes his Achilles tendon. The man screams in pain and starts firing his pistol wildly, and a stray bullet hits Teresa. As chaos erupts inside, the couple seizes the opportunity to escape the house, grab their essentials from the car, and speed away in the host's vehicle. On the road, the spouses start blaming each other for everything that happened. Up ahead on a bridge, two thugs from the gamblers' gang are spinning a roulette wheel. When the skull symbol lands, they open fire on the couple's car. One of the bullets hits Nina in the shoulder. Mark makes a sharp turn and slams the gas pedal, desperately trying to shake off the pursuers. That night, a call is made to Jim, informing him that Teresa and Bella are dead and asking him to capture Nina. Jim enters his garage only to find his entire gang gunned down. Before he can react, Betsy delivers a powerful crowbar strike to his head. She then unlocks the cage, freeing the imprisoned women. After that, Betsy escapes the gang's hideout in a stolen police car. The next morning, Nina wakes up alone in bed and finds a note from her husband, saying he went to search for supplies in the house next door. In the next note, he warns her that a trap has been set on the door and that she should exit through the window. In the garage, Nina finds a Jeep and a sedan. In the neighboring house, Mark discovers Nathan and Stephen tied up with bags over their heads. Suddenly, a blonde man appears and orders Mark to drop his shotgun. Meanwhile, Betsy hears Jim making noise in the trunk, opens it, and shoots him in the leg. She then notices a strange figure in the forest and goes to check who it is. Back in the house, the blonde man introduces himself as William Cunningham and happily introduces Mark to his enforcer, Bill. William gives Mark two choices: either he kills Nathan and his son himself, or he fights the brute. Nina packs her things and prepares to leave, but notices another note from her husband. In it, he asks for her forgiveness, suggests they start over, and invites her to listen to her favorite record. She opens a bottle of alcohol and begins dancing to heavy metal, completely lost in the music, while Betsy watches her closely from the window. Meanwhile, Mark hesitates to kill the family but suddenly lunges at Bill. However, the giant easily throws him across the room. Bill starts choking Mark, but in a desperate move, Mark bites his hand and falls right onto William. At that moment, Mark manages to grab the blonde man's revolver and shoots him. Meanwhile, Betsy returns to the car and, without hesitation, guns down Jim. Mark and the others step outside while Bill waves them off as if wishing them luck. Back at the house, Mark finds Nina asleep and gently tucks her into bed. She wakes up to the sound of her husband shooting at targets outside. Watching him, she finally decides that she wants to learn how to shoot with a scoped rifle. While the two train outside, Betsy sneaks into the house and finds a wedding ring. Later, Nina takes Mark to the garage where he excitedly discovers a car identical to the one he drove in his youth. The couple reminisces about the past, lost in nostalgia and overcome by emotions. They make love in the back seat. They have no idea that the car belongs to another gang. Suddenly, the gang members grab them and decide their fate with a game of roulette. The suit drawn is clubs, so the thugs throw the couple into a van and drive them to their hideout, 70 kilometers from Milwaukee. Upon learning that the two are married, the gangsters take them to a special room. They screw their hands into large gloves attached to pistols and begin placing bets on them. The host loads a single bullet into each gun and explains the rules. They will shoot at each other for 6 rounds. If either refuses, he will add 2 more bullets to the cylinder. Nina, unable to bear it any longer, screams for him to add 2 bullets right away, but that would limit the game to only 2 rounds. The host agrees and pulls the trigger on Nina's gun himself. In the first round, the gun doesn't fire. He spins the cylinder again and pulls the trigger a second time. This time, the bullet hits Mark in the shoulder. While the host entertains the spectators, Nina secretly frees herself, grabs his weapon, and shoots him in the back. She quickly helps Mark break free and finishes off the host. Wanda gives the couple 10 seconds to run before the gang rushes into the armory for weapons. Outside, snipers attempt to kill Mark and Nina, but Betsy takes them out with precise shots. Wanda orders her men to bring a car, planning to chase down and punish the defiant couple. However, the spouses soon reach Milwaukee, where Nina learns, with deep sorrow, that her parents have passed away. Her father succumbed to a severe illness, and her mother followed soon after. Connie hands Nina a letter from her mother. Later, Connie, Dale, and Winston reveal a roadside tripwire that triggers a powerful explosive capable of stopping nearly any vehicle. Another neighbor, Phil, greets Nina. Meanwhile, Betsy sneaks into an abandoned house, realizing that the gang will soon arrive. Shortly after, a family with their daughter Cynthia visits and treats them to an exquisite meal. Nina notices Phil talking to someone over a radio. She distracts him and he immediately retreats into his house. Sensing trouble, she follows the old man and hides behind a corner, overhearing from his radio that someone is just a minute away from their location. Realizing that Phil has betrayed them to the enemy, Nina quickly grabs Cynthia, who is peacefully riding her bike, and rushes home with her without wasting a second. At that moment, the gang arrives. Nina opens fire with her shotgun, while Betsy eliminates several thugs at once using a machine gun. One of the bandits stealthily sneaks up on Nina, but Mark notices just in time and swiftly takes him down. Suddenly overwhelmed by fear, Cynthia runs out of the house. Mark tries to catch the girl, but at that moment, another bandit attacks him, grabbing his throat and choking him. Summoning his last bit of strength, Mark rips a horn off the attacker's helmet and drives it straight into the man's neck. Meanwhile, one of the neighbors, who decided to betray his own people, shoots Betsy, wounding her. However, the old man who did it is immediately gunned down by the villains. Out of nowhere, a massive truck arrives, another gang that had tracked Betsy using her signal beacon. They manage to gun down several enemies before Nina activates the tripwire, wiping out the remaining foes with a powerful explosion. Betsy stumbles into the house, breathing heavily, and with trembling hands mark his wife's wedding ring. Right behind her, Wanda storms in and, without hesitation, blows Betsy's head off with a shotgun blast. At that moment, Nina bursts into the room. Consumed by rage, she instantly kills Wanda, sending the villainess to follow her victim. Afterward, Nina heads to the home of the traitor Phil. Upon entering, she sees that the old man is already dead, killed by a stray bullet, but then she notices a tattoo on his arm confirming his affiliation with the gang. Searching the house, she finds her father's magnum and carefully hands it to Mark. He takes the weapon, looks into his wife's eyes, and gently slides the wedding ring back onto her finger. Now they have no reason to stay here. Mark and Nina get into the car and drive away, searching for a new safe place. Meanwhile, over the radio, a psychopath named Elle tells a story about a crazy couple who wiped out an entire squad of the gamblers. How did you like the movie? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching and see you next time.